How's that?
I can't get anything done.
So we're going to get interrupted 3 or 4 times?
No, they just started. They'll be able to manage for an hour.
Yeah.
Mom's on the job.
Mom's on the job. Good.
As usual.
Yes. So we're just going to kind of hang out for a couple more minutes, and then we're going to start inviting the people in, and then we'll start to get going as far as like kind of questions and stuff. And, you know, we'll just kind of hang out and chat, man.
Sure.
So it's Josh, do you have anything to add to that, or are we all good?
Yeah, well, I was just going to let you know, Stan, Andrew and I will be moderating the chat. So if you see things pop up in the chat, don't worry about it. Andrew may throw up a survey, and that'll show up on everybody's screen during the interview. You can just hit the little X icon to close that survey window and just disregard that, because that'll be for the people in the chat. And then towards the end, if time allows, then Andrew will pull a question or two from that someone commented on markbill.com, or a question or two that somebody left in the chat itself. And we've, I think we're recording now. It's kind of been an unofficial tradition since we had Eddie on about a month ago, that as we're testing all the audio and stuff, that the guest shares a poop story. So do you have any
we've had
fresh poop
Stan,
stories?
we've had you on a bunch, and you shared a couple yourself, but I thought that for this one, it would be entertaining, at least to me, since I've heard a couple of your poop stories already. I want to know the worst/best poop story that you have ever heard or had some sort of experience with, being that you've been in all sorts of fun places with fun people and being a bodybuilder, etc. So what's the worst thing that you've ever heard?
Well, no, I've got a great one. I bought that RV so I could, do that 50-city tour, right? So the first day I get it, I want to take the family for a drive, and the strip was closed down. So we went down to drive the strip, and there was almost no cars there. And my son, Stan Jr., decides he needs to go to the bathroom. And I said, well, there's a bathroom right there. So he hops into the bathroom in the RV, and it's kind of a small RV. It's only a 21-footer. And he drops a load in there, and then I come to find out there's no water in there. You can't flush it. And there's no toilet paper.
Oh, no.
So the entire van was engulfed, and I had to roll down the windows just to get some air in there. But Junior had to sit there and wait until I could stop and get some toilet paper at a convenience store. And then we couldn't flush it. It had to stay there the whole way home because I didn't know how to get the water working and flush it. So it was another 20 minutes to the house.
Oh my God, that's terrible. But honestly, how proud were you of him? Oh no, he froze.
No.
That's a good frozen picture of Stan, though.
Lost you there.
Is he back on? There you are.
Yep,
there you go.
I'm there.
But Stan, as disgusting as that was, how proud of you of Junior were you?
Pretty proud. Yep. He eats a lot. Let's just say that.
That's awesome. Thank you, bud. That was great.
How we sounding, Andrew? We all good?
Yeah, with the exception of that little freeze there. Yeah, everything sounds good. Everything looks good. So if that does happen again, though, we might just like ask Stan to just kind of like, hey, can you repeat that? Like it's a private webinar, so it's pretty chill. But other than that, yeah, I can start sending out invitations and then get people coming in, so that way we can get rolling.
Awesome. Let's do it. Do we have a video for Stan, or are we just rolling?
Yes, we do.
Okay, cool. So Stan, we're going to invite people in, and then Mark filmed the video expressing his undying heterosexual love for you. and then we'll kind of start a little bit of an interview, and we'll kind of go from there, and we'll try and steer it around, have some fun, and go from there. If there's anything that you did want to talk about, feel free to throw that in there, but we're just going to trying to hang out, and this is for all the markbell.com people, and since we're buddies, and we've been around each other for a long time, to be able to kind of show what it would be like if we were actually on the phone or actually kind of hanging out. So that's kind of what we're trying to accomplish with this.
Got you.
Awesome. Cool.
So,
shout out to Ramon for showing up first.
Yeah, right on, Ramon. So do you plan to use that RV again, Stan, or is it just going to be a family thing, or?
Nope, I've already sold it. I bought it just for the trip. I was going to rent one, but the rental would have cost me $30,000 to travel the U.S. over a 2-month period with mileage and daily rental. So I just decided to buy and resell. I've already resold it. I ended up, I bought it for 94 and I sold it for 86. So it only cost me $8,000 to do the trip.
That's nice, dude. That's great.
Yeah.
Did you have to disclose Junior's dump in there, or was that all right? You finally got that out of there?
Yeah, too late now. It's already sold. Did the fact that you were in that for 50 days have any effect on the resale value? It's interesting. The couple that decided to buy it, they were fans, and so they wanted to get pictures and what have you. So it may have helped with the negotiation.
That's amazing. That's fantastic. I loved your post of your conversation with your daughter the other day.
Oh yeah, you already know. You live it every day.
Yes.
It's unbelievable the things that come out of their mouths.
She's already 25 years old, right?
Yeah, she'll text me 47 times in a row to get the response she wants.
Oh man, life with girls, it's the best, right?
Yes, indeed. Yep, looking forward to more of that. It goes too fast. I mean, it seems like yesterday we moved here to Vegas and she was in her mom's belly. She was born here in Vegas. It's over 8 years now.
Yeah, it's crazy. That's awesome.
Cool. Looks like we got a good amount of people filling in now. Do you guys want to see a quick message from Mark Bell?
Let's do it.
Cool. Let me get it rolling.
All right, I got more super friends to share with you guys. This guy is Stan the Rhino Efferding. Stan has been training at Super Training Gym for many, many years. He's been a friend of mine for many years. He's somebody I consult with. He's somebody I still ask questions to all the time. Whenever I get my blood work done, I shoot it over to him. Whenever I have trouble sleeping, I send it over to him. Whenever my training's not going well, whenever I feel flabby or weak, I'll consult with Stan, and Stan always has great answers. He has simple answers. He's got real concise stuff that's like, you kind of think to yourself, shit, why didn't I think of that? But Stan is somebody, one of the things that I really like about Stan, and one of the things I think that you guys are going to find extremely valuable, is there's a lot of people right now that are really striving to get lean. They want to get in better shape. Stan is one of the few guys that really stands firm when he talks about, he wants people to eat more. He wants people to be loaded up with more nutrients, both micro and macronutrients. Most of the time we hear people talking about fasting or talking about eliminating an entire macronutrient altogether, like carbohydrates. You guys know I do like a low carb lifestyle. Stan doesn't really talk that way. Stan is one of the guys that's like, listen, if you want to be big, you want to be strong, you want to be in shape, even if you want to be lean, you have to supply your body with the nutrients that it demands of you. Otherwise, each day is going to be a real strain. Each day is going to be a real stress. It's going to be difficult to get to those workouts, especially with all the other things that you're accountable for in your day-to-day. The other thing that's amazing about Stan is that he did bodybuilding and powerlifting. He was a professional bodybuilder. as well as being an all-time world record holder in powerlifting. When Stan first came to me several years ago and said, hey, I want to break some world records, it was fairly simple to be able to work with somebody like that. The first couple of days I worked out with him, I was trying to beat him on certain things, and I couldn't quite figure it out. Even though he never did any of these movements, even though these movements were new, I couldn't figure out, like, where's this guy have a weak point? And I struggled when it came to the squat, even though I was wearing a squat suit. And when it came to the deadlift, he was destroying me. And I was like, oh, well, I'm always good at bench, so I'll catch up with him on the bench. I was wrong there as well. Best bench for me, 578. Best bench for the Rhino, 606 in a full competition. Also, it's dead center in the middle of over an 800-pound squat and over an 800-pound deadlift. There's very, very few people who have ever done that, and there's very few people that have ever done that. And also, in addition to that, be a professional bodybuilder. The only other person that comes to mind that I could even think of doing anything remotely close to that is the one and only Ronnie Coleman. And Stan, Stan is, but Stan also did that in competition, which Ronnie Coleman, he didn't compete in powerlifting when he was at his strongest. Anyway, the Rhino is somebody that I use often as a great resource. He's going to have great information here for you. You guys might know some of his talks about the vertical diet. He's somebody that comes to Super Training Gym and still spits out some really great information to us. Last thing I want to kind of finish with here in sharing a Rhino story, I was thinking about all the different times I was trying to beat him. It didn't matter what it was. I just tried to beat him on it. It could have been like a lat pull down or something. He could have been halfway paying attention, and I could have tried to beat him on it, but he would still kick my ass. There was one incident in particular where we used the conjugate system quite often, especially back then. I was like, well, I know Stan has never used some of these specialty bars, so we're going to go with the safety squat bar. And I know he's never used bands, and I know that he's never used chains. So we're going to use a safety squat bar. We're going to use bands, and we're going to use chains on the bar as well. And so we start doing these, and he's also never done a box squat. And so we start doing box squats, and I have it in my head, like, I'm going to beat him today. So I'm moving 100 miles an hour, and he kind of recognizes it right away. And he's like, oh, okay, like, this is the way today is going to go. Like, I got somebody who's hungry, somebody who's going to try to kick my ass today. And I do a plate. He does a plate. We go back and forth, keep stacking on more and more weight. We get to about 4 plates, and it's starting to get pretty difficult because the band tension that's on there and the amount of chain weight that we have on there is adding a lot to the overall bar weight. So we get to 4 plates, and I move it around pretty good. I'm still pretty explosive. And so Stan's like, oh, crap. The Stan does a set, and he moves pretty slow. I'm like, oh, here we go. This is great. I was like, I really think I might actually be in a position for a victory here today. I'm getting pretty excited. We go to 5 plates, and I'm able to manage the 5 plates. I do a double with it. Still moving pretty good, but, it's definitely slowing down a lot because now it's like around 700 pounds of total bar weight. Stan goes, he situates himself in there, and he does all his noises, and he gets in there. He locks himself in. He kind of pushes the handles of the safety squat bar up a little bit. He goes down in super slow motion in Stan the Rhino Efferding typical fashion, takes about 6 or 8 seconds on the way down, and then goes, bop, bop, and then racks it. And then he hits me on the side. He's like, Biggs, I figured it out. I was like, son of a bitch. Needless to say, we went to 6 plates. I was able to do 2 reps, but it was like a max effort. The second rep looked like a good morning. You guys seen how bad my squat form can really get on those heavier lifts. And Rhino proceeded to do 6 plates very easily, and then even 7 plates. So, if you can't beat him, join him. That's why we brought him here to markbell.com to give you guys exclusive information. Strength is never weakness. Weakness is never strength. Catch you all later.
Well, thank you for that, Mark. Stan, it's always awesome to talk to you. It's been a good long time that we've been friends, and every time that we text message, call, or kind of get together, it's always fantastic. Always walk away learning something when we get to talk to you. So, thank you for taking some time away from homeschooling your kids to chat with us.
Thanks for saving me, brother.
Yeah, man. So, you know, we've heard a lot of, I'm sure everyone here has heard a lot of stories about you. Give us a real quick rundown of kind of the origin stories of the Rhino, from, you know, skinny soccer player to, you know, the vertical mastermind.
Yeah, I got to college and I was skinny. I was a soccer player, weighed 140 pounds, and I wanted to be jacked. I couldn't even bench 135. I was the only guy in the group that had to take the 45-pound plates off and put the 35s on just so I could get a rep. And I just wanted to get bigger and stronger. And so I started reading everything I could. I got my Muscle and Fitness subscription, and I started highlighting the pages and tabbing and folding them. And that was my Bible. Arnold Schwarzenegger's Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding, of course, played a big role in that. And I just fell in love with it. I earned a degree in psychology, but I had become so interested in weightlifting that I re-enrolled into the exercise science program. Started taking, you know, anatomy and phys and kines and bio and chem and all of that stuff, and really just fell in love with weightlifting and nutrition and training. And I went on to become a high school soccer coach, and then started working with some of the University of Oregon football players, and really just been training all my life. Started competing back in 1986 was my first bodybuilding show, and I weighed 158 pounds on stage. And that was after, like, I looked like a coat hanger up there. That was after almost 2 years of full-time training. But within 10 years, by 1996, I totaled 2,000 pounds in the 275-pound weight class in a 3-lift meet, my first 3-lift meet. It was after over 10 years of training before I entered a powerlifting meet. And ever since then, I've just been bulking up to compete in powerlifting and dieting down to compete in bodybuilding every year thereafter for, you know, decades now. And now that I'm too old and tired to do that anymore, I'm just kind of passing on the information, trying to help others learn all the lessons that I had to learn the hard way. And that's the purpose of the Vertical Diet. It's really an ebook that talks through just every aspect of performance, from sleep, hydration, nutrition, digestion, hormone optimization, you know, obviously the training component. And so I compiled that so anybody who came to me and asked a question, I generally already had the answer. And I've been distributing that information now for a few years under the name The Vertical Diet. And it's been wildly successful. We have over 100,000 people worldwide that have unique visitors to it's a username password access. And so we can see where people are coming from all over the world to read the information.
Well, I don't think it's any accident, because, you know, you do great work, and you're incredibly intelligent. You've taken your time, and, you know, it's pretty amazing that you are willing to pass along the information. Something that I find extremely fascinating about you, and you kind of touched on it, was your want for knowledge and your search for knowledge. You find something that's interesting and you go read about it and you attack it. And something that I really, really love about you is sometimes you even skipped the first step of trying to read about it, and you actually went and trained with Flex Wheeler. You went and worked with, and then when you were injured, you went and worked with Mark Philippi. And then when you wanted to do powerlifting, you came to Mark Bell. Can you know, a lot of people always want to know how to start or how to do something or how to get better at something. How did you come to the conclusion that this was the best way for you to make the gains, to make the, you know, to get to your goals, to satisfy that kind of curiosity? You know, what is it that kind of starts that, lit that fire? And, you know, how did you kind of end up figuring that out?
Well, I haven't been able to answer the motivation question. You kind of either are or you aren't. You know, it has to be something you're passionate about. And fortunately for me, I was so driven and I enjoyed lifting weights. Still to this day, I love to go to the gym and train. Particularly if I'm healthy and I'm prepared, then that session, that hour of is euphoric to me. That's the most enjoyable thing that I do. People always ask me, what do you do for fun? Well, that's what I do. I love to lift, and I have since I started touching weights back in 1985. And so that I can't answer for people. I can't, you know, Mark does a lot better job of motivating than me. I was just trying to make sure that experience was always the best and that I was progressing over time and meeting my goals. So that therein lies what the question you asked. How do I go about doing that? And initially, it was a lot of trial and error. We didn't have the internet back then. We didn't have access to all these great researchers and athletes the same way we do now. And, usually it was just the big guy behind the counter at the gym who was probably getting ready for a bodybuilding show, eating tuna out of a can and rice cakes. And so you started eating tuna and rice cakes. And it's just purely by trial and error that you discover over time that you're not going to grow that way. And you take advice from bigger people. I used to get in the car and drive down from Oregon to LA to Gold's Venice to watch them train, and obviously read all of their training routines and nutrition programs. And just applied them to myself as best I could. I bulked and dieted over and over and over again, year after year after year, multiple times a year. And you start to learn the best ways to gain weight and the best ways to lose weight without getting too fat or without losing too much muscle. Over time, just from talking to lots of people and working with lots of really smart people and reading as much as I could, I think I settled in on a system that worked for me and the one that's worked for the athletes I've trained. And I'm still, like you said, I'm still chasing information. Last year I read the NSCA textbook and got my CSCS. I attend seminars and read information from all of the smart people in the industry, which we're fortunate to have now. There's so many, academically credentialed competitive lifters now that are devoting their entire lives to optimizing performance. And, I read everything they write, everything from RP Strength and Mike Israetel, everything from Lane Norton, everything from Barbell Medicine with Jordan Fagenbaum and Austin Baraki. I attended their seminar. I went to the seminar with Mark Ripito, the starting strength seminar. I came up to the one that you hosted with Mikhail Koklayev and Boris Shako. I use every opportunity I can. I watch endless hours of content and use every opportunity I can to learn and apply new things. And I kind of try and boil that down into action items because, I don't want my clients to have to, spend as much time as I did, finding the information. And then I just make little checklists and I'm big on compliance, and day after day after day, I just continue to do the kinds of behaviors that make me successful.
I'm not exactly sure everyone understands this about you or knows this about you, but you're also an extremely successful businessman prior to and during your career as a bodybuilder and a powerlifter, and then kind of transition into what you're kind of doing now. Because it's always fascinating to me, some of the most successful people are the most driven people, and they have this ability to just kind of lock in and do something. How has, your, whether it's discipline or whatever it is, how in bodybuilding, sticking to a diet, experimenting, doing all this stuff, how has your business acumen and kind of your physical acumen kind of meshed together, and how have they influenced each other? And how have you learned, a little bit of business from, some bodybuilding, or a little bit of bodybuilding from business?
I think success in either has the same foundation, those repetitive behaviors of finding the things that work and consistently repeating them day after day. I've said in videos before that any highly successful athlete, bodybuilder, powerlifter, etc., who would devote the same amount of time and attention and discipline and time management and consistency to any income-producing venture would be a millionaire in 5 years. And because of all of the commitment that they have when you're competing in sports. I mean, you got to train very hard every day, but you also have to sleep well and eat well. And if you're dieting, you have to track everything and be consistent. That's the same kind of behaviors in business. I just found what was actually working, and then I just doubled down and repeated it on a daily basis. And it is work, and it's repetitive. But if you find the things that are actually returning to you, then and keep doing them over and over and over again. And also a huge component of being successful in business for me, and I talked about this in my Stress for Success rant, was paying yourself first, and not necessarily financially, but physically. The times at which I sacrificed sleep and I stopped exercising regularly and I wasn't eating very well were the times at which my performance suffered at work. My stress levels would go up, and I should say my success, what word would I look for? I just wasn't able to get as much done in a day. My efficiency and the quality of the work that I was doing. So, I talked about the fact that I just made sure that I always got good sleep, exercise regularly, had good nutrition. And then that put me in the position, just like in weightlifting or in bodybuilding, to where I could be successful every day. And I could go to the gym and have these, amazing workouts. It wasn't the workout itself, it was how I prepared myself for it. So stress is something you cannot avoid. It is something actually that as you become more and more successful, it will increase in intensity and quantity. And the only way to really be successful is to make sure that you're strong enough with good sleep, good nutrition, and regular exercise to where the stress is manageable. I compare it to weight on a bar. If you're a 100-pound bench presser and you put 200 on a bar, it's going to crush you. But if you're a 300-pound bench presser, 200 feels pretty easy. And I look at stress the same way. It's weight on a bar. And if you're not getting adequate sleep and you're not exercising regularly and you're stressed out and you're eating like shit, that 100 pounds of stress is going to feel pretty heavy. But if you're on your game and you're organized and you're doing all the things you need to do, then that stress is going to be pretty easy, pretty manageable, and you're going to continue to be able to endure more and succeed more and hire more people and expand your business and scale it. And be able to, crush that every day the same way you do your workouts when you're ready.
So you were able to rattle off some of your mentors and people that you're reading in the physical realm. Could you do the same thing for kind of the business realm? Any books or people that you look up to, you read, you consult with, you would consider a mentor?
Yeah, there's not a lot of books because businesses are so specific. There's not a lot of books. There's a lot of general books that kind of talks about the kinds of things I mentioned, things like The Millionaire Next Door, the kind of behaviors that people exhibit to become successful. But I did have a mentor. I just like I went to Flex Wheeler to become a pro bodybuilder, and I went to Mark Bell and Eddie Cohn to become a world record powerlifter. When I was growing up after college, I worked for a real estate developer. And I spent 9 years under his tutelage developing properties and managing large multifamily properties and doing cable and telephone systems in those. And I learned so much just from listening and observing. And I still quote many things that he said throughout the years that are now 25 years old. So I think everybody should have a coach. And I still utilize resources. I still reach out to specialists, whether it's Dr. Sandra Godick, a sleep specialist, whether it's Dr. Stasha Gomanak from the Heat Institute for hydration. I still reach out to experts in the industry to learn things. And so I think everybody should have a coach. I think that you should get a mentor, certainly read what you can read. YouTube's amazing nowadays, but you got to filter through a lot of information. That's why the 2 times speed thing is so awesome. You can get through an hour podcast in 20 minutes is great. But obviously I'm a voracious reader. I'm just the more information, the better. And then I just get out I won't watch a YouTube video without a yellow pad, and I'll start writing down the important action items. And those are the things that I can actually implement rather than, just the concepts. And then, ask questions and try and find a good coach, a good mentor. And, that's, to me, one of the most important things you can do is just keep learning from people who have done it before.
That's awesome. What are you reading right now? What can you suggest to us as far as like books or podcasts? What in the past couple weeks or months, what should we be reading? What should we be listening to?
There's some fundamentals that everybody, I think, should read. Anybody who's serious about fitness, strength training, should definitely be subscribing to Mass Research Review with Greg Nuckols. Just an extraordinary resource, incredibly intelligent. I'm reading Brad Schoenfeld's book, his hypertrophy book. Everybody should probably tune into Brad Schoenfeld. Mike Israetel from RP Strength. I watch every video he puts out. I've read his book. He's an excellent resource. In nutrition, I subscribe to Alan Aragon's newsletter and read everything that he writes. I certainly tune in to Lane Norton. Don't blame the messenger for the message. He he does have a excellent knowledge, and he boils it down so that it's understandable. Obviously, on the medical side, Barbell Medicine does a lot of great stuff. Austin Baraki and Jordan Fagenbaum are MDs who also lift competitively. I think both of them squat and deadlift damn near or over 700 pounds, which is pretty extraordinary for a couple of natural medical doctors that only weigh 200 pounds. So those are some fantastic resources that I dip into every day. And then a really intelligent guy that brings some very impressive specialists on in all different areas and fields is Dr. Peter Attia. And he has a podcast called The Drive, and he has a subscription to where you can, he actually compiles notes and everything on all the podcasts. So it's really easy, kind of a summary of things to review. And just a broad range on health topics, longevity, cholesterol, performance as well. But he's just an extraordinarily brilliant Stanford MD, Johns Hopkins oncology surgeon who's now in the longevity field. So those are probably my go-to guys. I might be forgetting one here or there, but boy, I tell you, between those, you can learn such an incredible amount.
Awesome. So we're going to kind of switch a little bit because this is me kind of have a personal question here.
Yeah.
You just got back from a 50-date seminar
60.
tour. Is that correct? 60-date seminar tour.
We did 60 cities in 60 days, all 48 states in Washington, D.C. We did a seminar every night and visited the whole country and had over 4,000 people register and attend our seminars nationwide.
I think that's, on its own, the only thing I can even, compare this to is an old punk band called Black Flag that tried to do 100 shows in 100 days. I've been on the road as a roadie and doing a bunch of other stuff and did a bunch of seminars. And for those people who don't know what that's like, that's a huge grind. And it's unbelievably impressive. And I did it in normal circumstances. You did it when we have a pandemic, when states are shut down, when people are scared to come out of their fucking houses with masks. My question, and you don't have to get political on here, that's not the whole thing. How was that experience? Because you've done seminars, you've been to, conventions, the Arnold, et cetera. How did that differ? How was the response different? How was just the feel? Were there people wearing masks? I know you had to change venues a couple of times. Let's just talk about, let's just appreciate the fact that that's an incredible endeavor that you did. It's extremely difficult. And then to do that during the times that you did it, that's 10 times as difficult as far as I'm concerned. Just walk us through some of the challenges that you had to face that otherwise normally you wouldn't have.
Yeah, about 4 or 5 cities in after I'd left the house, the resurgence of COVID cases started to rise in Texas and Florida, et cetera. And so people started shutting back down. I had thought everything was opening up, and I headed down to Arizona and then, New Mexico and across the Oklahoma. And so some people did have to cancel. Their gyms closed. And, when I left the house, I had 20 gyms committed to hosting, obviously about the first 10, and then, spotted throughout. And so I was still, DMing and emailing and calling venues to try and secure a place to host a seminar when I was driving down the street. I didn't do that before I left. So I would just put, I had a list of cities and I would just put TBA, to be announced, and let people know I was coming, but I didn't know where. I had no idea myself. And so my goal on the trip was just to keep closing, locations along the way. And I'd reached out to friends and asked them if they knew anyone in this area or that area. And I had a lot of help along the way and appealed on social media if anybody knows anybody in this city that'd like to host. And so it was quite an undertaking in that regard. I was very fortunate about 4 cities in that I joined up with Bobby Summers, and he's a 13-year Army veteran who was an Iraqi war veteran, injured in the war, Purple Heart recipient. And he speaks now on PTSD and suicide prevention. Specifically for the FitOps Foundation is what he's most involved in. And so Bobby came up to attend one of my seminars. And he called and said, "Hey, I'm in Dallas. Can I drive up?" I think it was, I forget where it was, but it was only about 2 hours north of him there. And he attended the seminar, and I asked him to speak. And then a few people came up to him after the seminar and had disclosed that they have had suicidal tendencies and were depressed. And Bobby talked to them for quite some time and gave them his DM. And he really felt like he helped those folks. And so Bobby asked me if he could follow along and do a few more seminars and kind of take a little loop until he got back down to Dallas. And I said, "Park your car, you can go with me, and I'll just drop you off in Dallas." And he parked his car, and we did the next 5 seminars together. And he opened with a presentation about mental health, and it was pretty compelling that he was there during this time, because there are a lot of people who did get locked out of their gyms, which is such an important part.
Oh no!
Of most people's their ability to relieve the stress, and a lot of people look to their gym as kind of as where they worship, where they their sanity is maintained. And I've kind of felt that throughout my life. At the times at which I wasn't able to train, I talked about my stress. It just seemed to be almost unmanageable when I wasn't able to lift. So, we did about 5 or 6 seminars together, and we got down to Dallas. Bobby said he wanted to do the rest of the trip, and fortunately, he shared the driving. He actually did the lion's share. Bobby was after he got blown up twice in Iraq. He was a driver for some of the military brass, and he would drive all over Iraq, and so he was quite comfortable helping me, and we traveled the country together. And what we found is that a lot of those people that came together, they were frustrated. They were fed up. They didn't care so much. I think that they were a little less concerned about their potential for significant problems from COVID, because they're a younger crowd, they're a healthier crowd, and we know that statistics are showing us that the average age was 84 with comorbidities. Over half of the people who passed away from COVID were in retirement homes, and so it seemed to be pretty isolated to immunocompromised, elderly, comorbid circumstances, and the younger folks were really just trying to prevent passing it on to people who might be more susceptible. But I did try and stay out of the politics. I think that there's we did a lot of good by, physically and mentally, by getting people together. There's been a lot, a huge increase in domestic abuse, in child abuse, in suicide. All those things have skyrocketed as a result of the lockdowns. And so, it's kind of a mixed bag. It's a bit of a difficult challenge to, who do you protect and how do you protect them, and who's sacrificing as a result. I didn't try and get into it too much. I didn't talk about it much during the seminars. People attended at their own discretion. Some wore masks, some didn't. Some gyms required it. I didn't care. I wore a mask all throughout the country every time I went into a store or a gas station or those kinds of things. And I'm not out here trying to be political about any of that. I'm just out here trying to help where I can help. And it was, people were very, very grateful and thankful, and they lined up to shake my hand and to tell me stories about ways in which their life changed. And it was just such an emotional journey, both with Bobby there in terms of the psychological aspect and the things that people were able to do to improve themselves physically, and in so much as they were able to utilize some of the information that they heard from me on a podcast or in the vertical diet. They wanted to share that and thank me, and whatever life-changing experience that they wanted to express. They just wanted to make sure they thanked me personally. I could have done a webinar. I could have done one webinar at home and reached a similar amount of people. But in my mind, I think that it's much more impactful to see people, to shake their hands, to listen to their story personally. And I would spend, sometimes a couple hours after the seminar taking my time to talk to every single person, answer their questions, and listen to their stories. And so it's invaluable, the relationship building that was done just by being able to be there and see people in person.
And again, I was so stoked for you. If Bobby wasn't going to call you, or if he wasn't on the RV, I was about to call you, and I wanted to come along too, because I thought that the world, especially our industry and all of our people, if you will, really needed that. And when everyone was running away from something, you ran into the storm like a true stud, and I think that's so commendable. Can you chat a little bit, or this is just, kind of another question. Hearing Bobby speak and getting to talk and spend some time with him, did you find any parallels or any sort of more connections with PTSD, suicidal tendencies, et cetera, with obviously, mental health with physical health? Has any of your thought processes changed as far as what can diet and workout do for people's mental health? I mean, we all know that, again, going to the gym is church, was there any other more parallels? Could you see anything else that, really solidified a little bit more of a thought process, or something that you thought was there, and then you kind of figured out, oh, there's no question that this is there?
Yeah, I've seen that for years in doing seminars all over the world. I've seen people who have said when they got into a weight training program and started really exerting themselves, that their mental health improved significantly. I would never be one to claim that it's a cure or to dismiss the severity of people's personal circumstances mentally, whether it be for suicide or stress or anxiety. But I consistently do see and hear that people at least experience some relief of the frequency and severity of the symptoms, if not make it completely and entirely manageable long term, so long as they're investing themselves in better health and fitness. It's exactly what I covered in my Stress for Success rant. When people really focus on improving their body composition, losing some body fat, sleep is just a monster there. That's some of the work that I did with Dr. Gomanak. She was a 30-year neurologist who used to prescribe medications for things like fibromyalgia and migraines and anxiety, who just went full bore onto sleep. And now that's all she does is consult all over the world on sleep optimization, because she found that it had such an enormous impact, and exercise being a component of being able to sleep better. And that's, everything that she does now. And of course I talk about the CPAP and its benefits for sleep. But it's huge. And that's why barbell medicine exists. Barbell medicine, they lift weights as a prescription. Yes, some people do need medications for, for some illnesses and mental and physical, but that should be concurrent with a program of weight training and optimizing sleep. And I even think gut health, because we know that that's related to mental health as well. Yep. Certainly connected, which is why I have such a big focus on digestion and helping people with the kinds of foods that they can eat to decrease gas and bloating and eating disorders and things like GERD. I can't tell you how many times I discussed acid reflux and ways to cure acid reflux, and told my audiences that it was very common for people who would go in and get antacid medication to very shortly thereafter end up back at the doctor's getting antidepressants. And people would come up to me and say, I thought you were talking to me. And I saw it over and over and over again, where that gut-brain connection and those antacid medications preventing people from breaking down proteins and absorbing minerals and electrolytes, and was causing them depression. Same with sleep and sleep apnea, causing depression. Same with lack of exercise and excess fat, which we now know has its own hormonal component, which we didn't think. We thought it was dormant before. Now we see that there are hormones that are released and suppressed by fat accumulation. So all of those things are relative. They go a long way. Not stepping in between an individual's mental health and their psychologist or psychiatrist and their medication. I'm just saying that in all cases, whether it's mental or physical, it's never any one thing. And when I talk about things like my high blood pressure quick fix kit or my high blood sugar quick fix kit, there's 12 or 15 items on each of those, and you have to do them all. There's no magic pill, powder, or potion, and one component isn't going to, completely fix the problem. So I put together checklists, and I make sure that people are compliant with, if possible, all of the things on the checklist in order to get the results that they want.
So thank you for that. I think that was awesome, and I think it's amazing, and I think everyone kind of understands that, but to get to understand it on a deeper level is pretty amazing. So again, we're going to kind of switch gears. It's markbell.com, so we gotta get a little lighthearted on here. We were a little deep there talking about suicide and all sorts of studies, but we really appreciate that. I think it's fascinating, and I really think the way that you explain the message and everything is it's easy to digest, and it's awesome. So we know you're huge on sleep, compliance, gut health, all this other stuff. Why don't you give me 3 things in the diet realm that drive you absolutely batshit crazy, and 3 things in kind of the strength and conditioning workout realm that drive you absolutely batshit crazy?
Yeah, these are easy.
You don't have to name names. You don't have to do anything. Just let's just air some shit out, man.
Yeah, these are easy. These are things that I personally experienced and that I see commonly in my clients, whether it's dad bods and soccer moms or professional athletes. And so probably number one when dieting is being over restrictive, your egg white, tilapia, and broccoli diet. And I see such huge problems with that. People lose a ton of muscle tissue. Women in particular end up with anemia, amenorrhea, osteoporosis, hypothyroidism. It's just not sustainable, and they lose a ton of muscle mass and end up at the doctor's office getting a multitude of prescriptions and shots for D3 and iron and a host of other things. So over restriction, that maddens me. There's no reason why on an equivocal calorie basis why you can't continue to consume red meat, whole eggs, dairy, Greek yogurt, fruit, salt your food, and make a lifestyle out of foods that you enjoy, particularly whole foods like those that give you all the micronutrients that you need to be healthy and have energy and to satiate you. And so I don't prescribe any of those extreme diets, even and up to including Miss Olympia competitor Nadia Wyatt, who took 3rd at the Miss Olympia, who didn't eat any egg whites or tilapia or broccoli. She ate steak and whole eggs and salted her food and had potatoes and fruit every day. And she loved the experience. And we're working with her again for the Olympia this year. Number 2, on the other extreme, my fat friends, my old Mark Bell, and myself numerous times when I got up over 300 pounds, and when Hofthor came to me 4 years ago and he said, Stan, I'm getting fatter. I'm not getting stronger. You remember, you were the one who directed him to me when he called you and told you that he needed help with that. And I very much appreciate that. And one of the first things I realized, because I lived it and I studied it, is that he was suffering from metabolic syndrome. And that's, fatty liver, high blood pressure, high blood sugar, high cholesterol, partitioning nutrients towards fat instead of muscle. And so all the work that he wasn't recovering as fast, and he was having bloating and digestion issues and water retention, all of those things. So that's second on my list of things that frustrate me, is when people just get over fat. They eat too much calories trying to get bigger, and they stay too heavy too long, and they don't periodize their weight. Nobody would max out every week all year round. But yet they try and maintain a maximum body weight all year round, or just keep gaining and gaining and gaining. At some point, you need to periodize your weight. You need to diet down and lose, I say, around 7 to 10% of your body weight. We took Hofthor from 435 down to the low 390s. When you do that, you almost entirely remedy fatty liver, and you increase insulin sensitivity, and your cholesterol drops and your blood pressure and all of that. And then, we bulked back up, but we utilized a different diet protocol that allowed him to gain more muscle and less fat. Also, the CPAP and the 10-minute walks and the vitamin D3 and choline and things that helped his body better build muscle and prevent the fat gain. So those are probably the two biggest. I don't even know if I have a third. I think that covers just about all of it. I guess the third would be people who are who think that their diet's the only diet. And I've never said that the vertical diet's the only diet. I've said many times the best diet's the one you'll follow. And when somebody tells somebody the only way to lose weight is keto or carnivore or paleo or vegan, or it doesn't matter. There's many paths to the same destination. And really, the goal is to help people understand that it has to be a lifestyle, it has to satiate them, and they have to have energy. And it certainly needs to be healthy, as mentioned in the micronutrient deficient discussion. And so, I have, as a vertical diet coach, I have clients that I recommend the vertical diet or a carnivore to. They usually present with severe autoimmune disorders or have type 2 diabetes, or keto if their appetite is out of control, and some people find that it remedies that, or intermittent fasting for some people. I tend to like to eat because I want to be able to have good workouts, and we're seeing more and more of the keto people start to acknowledge recently that carbs around workouts can be very beneficial for performance and recovery. We saw it with Dr. Peter Attia. We saw it with Mike Mutzel. We saw it with Paul Saladino. Mark Bell himself has started using some more carb timing methods around workouts. And so I just don't want to be, I don't want people to get too dogmatic about the diet and work with the fundamentals that matter, and then try and make sure that their client can build a lifestyle if it works for them. So then, long term they can maintain the diet, because 95% of people who go on a diet regain all the weight within 3 years. So those are my top three on dieting.
So before we get going anywhere, you've had a chance to work with a lot of people. Can you tell us the story of and again, we don't need to name names here. So like the biggest, worst horror story that was ever presented to you, either from a client or that you heard from a wife or, a training partner or something else, who was literally the least prepared to go in and do this, or what was the worst thing you ever heard that someone was doing in order to try and accomplish said goals?
Well, it's not even one story. It's extremely common in the guru diet industry, the bikini girls, extremely common for them to over-restrict, to eat the egg whites. The avidin protein binds to biotin, and then they get dry hair and skin. They end up suppressing their thyroid, so they end up, their hair starts falling out. They lose an extraordinary amount of muscle. We see osteoporosis is very common, particularly in runners who over diet. They get shin splints, and we see amenorrhea, a cessation of the menstrual period, and sometimes it can take a year or two for that to come back if they've dieted too hard, too long. I think it's tragic and it's extremely common, and I think the most tragic thing about the whole bikini guru diets is that the general public now, the soccer moms, see these women on stage in their bikinis in the best shape of their life and have no idea what their medical conditions are. Their hair loss, their PCOS, their menstrual period stopping, of course, the anemia, it takes them, and then immediately after the show, they get this enormous edema, water retention that is extremely painful and persistent. It can last weeks or a month or more. And they gain back a significant amount of body fat. And they just feel terrible. We've seen it because you and I are in the industry. We've seen it very commonly, but the general public doesn't see the dirty behind the scenes post competition rebounds. And so that to me is what's most tragic, and it's extremely common. It's not even as though it's a single story or a one worst story. It's pervasive in the industry. And
I don't want to name names here, but didn't you have a wife of a client of yours tell you that in his quest to gain weight and gain muscle, that he was actually eating pizza while taking shit?
Yeah, that often happens with my big athletes, is that calories are king. There's no question that if you don't eat enough calories, that you're going to start losing weight, and mass moves mass. And if you're a strength athlete, then you're going to get weaker. And so that's the first goal, is to eat enough calories. But there's problems with that. If you're eating, as we talked with Hofthor's situation, if you just start eating pizza, pasta, and pancakes and gain a whole bunch of fat, also the digestion issues are extreme. And I experienced this throughout my career. When I was dieting for bodybuilding, I would cook all my own food at home and carefully eat, my own foods. And so I did really, really well. My digestion was excellent. But when I started gaining weight, I would end up going out more often. I would get pizzas and burritos and all that kind of thing. I would have a whole bunch of digestion issues. And it turns out that one of my triggers was seed oils, and it would give me gastric distress to the point where I would get diarrhea within 30 minutes of eating anything that had canola or cottonseed or corn oil or soybean or sunflower. And most restaurants cook everything in that. And so that to me was very difficult, because I couldn't identify the problem. I thought it was a food, not something that was in every food. But I did have a client that was doing the pizza, pasta, pancakes, trying to maintain a significant amount of weight. And his wife disclosed to me that he actually he stopped eating on the toilet. And it's not like I hadn't experienced that myself or heard it before. Flex Wheeler's been very candid about the fact when he was eating Orange Roughy that what happened to him all the time, shit and orange and not being able to control when it comes out. And, even Eddie Cohn talked about his explosion in his single ply squat suit. It's very common. Digestion problems are huge, and that's why I lead with a low FODMAP diet and focus on gas and bloating with the vertical diet.
All right, so we're kind of coming to the end. I think we're going to try and have a couple of questions from the audience real quick, and then we're going to kind of let you go. But before we do that, having been a good friend of yours and having the absolute pleasure of going out to eat with you, what is your absolute go-to order from Cheesecake Factory? What is it? So hold on. What is it now, and what was it? What, if you could order anything off that menu, what would it be? But what is your always 100% go-to order?
Yeah, well, I love food. I could order anything off of the cheesecake menu, but most of it would cause me problems. I've always said I don't eat food I like. I eat food that likes me, and I make that decision about an hour after I eat. So, unfortunately, with the vegetable oils, I can't do much at any restaurant. So when I order at Cheesecake Factory, my go-to meal is always a couple of side hamburger patties, just the patty itself, and a side of white rice and a side of pickles, and then the sourdough bread and butter. And I can get, if I get just one patty and a side of rice and pickles, it's $7.95. And then I can get all you can eat sourdough bread and butter. So I can be in and out of there with a tip for under $10. I still tend to be a bit of a cheap bastard when it comes to food, because I have to eat so much so often, right, that I don't like to drop, $50-$60 on a steak, because 2 hours later I'll be looking for the next meal. So that's my big thing. But I have to tell them not to cook it in seed oil, because even at Cheesecake Factory, they'll sear the burger in vegetable oil before they put it on the grill, and that keeps it from burning and keeps it moist. The same way as most of those grilled chicken places. They baste the chicken very heavily in vegetable oil so it won't burn on the grill. And that's why it always comes out and you're like, oh, why is this always so moist? Well, that's one of the main reasons. So, yeah, that's my go-to.
And be honest, how much stock do you own in Cheesecake Factory?
None, nor do I own any in Costco, but I love Costco.
No?
Nobody does it better.
Gosh. That's true. I agree with you 100%. All right, we're going to go ahead and let Andrew ask a couple of questions from the audience real quick. then we'll do a quick little closing, and then we'll let you go on your way, Stan. Really appreciate the time so far, bud.
Yeah, thanks, Stan. Everything so far, man. I mean, every time you speak, it's like it's always gold. So we sincerely appreciate your time. Real quick, I'm going to just spotlight Matthew's video because I thought for sure Mark was here, but apparently, I guess it's not smelly. Yeah. Okay. Now I got to figure out how to not spotlight. There we go. All right, cool. It got a little scary. Sorry, Matthew. But Matthew's asking about meal timing regarding workouts, before or after, and do you prioritize protein, carbs, and fat around those? And which ones would you have first if you did have to, put one in front of the other?
To the research. Well, what the International Society of Sports Nutrition suggests is that you get about 40 grams of protein at least 4 times a day, and that's going to be dependent upon your body weight. I like to prescribe about a gram of protein per pound of body weight, divided evenly between at least 4 meals a day. If you're a large calorie consumer, you might need 5 meals just to be able to consume that much. Or if you're only on a 1,500 calorie diet, if you're a small woman, then probably only 3 meals. But so get at least 40 grams of protein 4 times a day is a good protein consumption for performance, but a gram of protein per pound of body weight. Eat a meal about 2 hours or so before a workout, and that's going to depend on the pace at which that you digest, so that if it's an arm day, you can probably eat closer. If it's leg day, you might have to eat a little further. It just depends on your comfort level for how much hard work you're going to have to do that day. And that would just be 40 grams of protein. You would want to focus on putting about 60% of your daily carbs before and after your workout. So that meal before your workout would be a little higher in carbohydrates. Typically, I like an easy to digest carbohydrate like white rice. I eat fruit daily, and I would prefer that over some harder to digest carbohydrate like a grain or a legume or something like that. And then immediately post-workout, I like the benefit of taking in some simple carbohydrates, particularly if you're training twice a day. It's definitely a significant performance enhancer for the second workout. If you can consume a blend of 2 sugars, dextrose and fructose is the one I recommend. Dr. Stasha Gomenak at the Heat Institute has dextrose and maltodextrin in her Levelin product that she recommends, along with sodium post-workout. So I think that encompasses it. And even if you don't take the carbs in immediately post-workout, I still like to eat a meal within an hour. I know the research says there's no anabolic window. I get it. But there's certainly no harm in it. And we do like to get protein feedings about every 4 hours on the outside. There's no mechanism in the body to store protein. And so it's ideal to get protein about every 4 hours throughout the day.
Awesome. And then from the live chat, I'm going to highlight Dana. Sorry, I keep wanting to say Diana, who I think is the first female to be on one of these webinars. So Dana, you get to be our first lady. She's asking a question about kind of quote like plateauing. So she hit her goal of I'm assuming like a weight goal and an exercise goal. So she was able to accomplish something fairly quickly, but then she's finding herself being more stagnant now. Even though she's still following her diet, her exercises, she's still hitting it hard, but the numbers she's hitting in the gym aren't going up as fast as she would like. And then her diet goal seems like she's, like I said, stagnant. So how do you kind of break out of that plateau? She got there and now she wants to improve even more, but it's not happening the way it did initially.
Yeah, patience and persistence. There's always, progress is never linear, whether it's weight loss or strength gain and muscle gain. And so you will go through periods of plateaus. There's some good evidence now that suggests that you could do diet breaks whereby you go back to maintenance calories for a couple of weeks and then go back to a deficit if fat loss is your goal. It's pretty hard to gain muscle at a calorie deficit. So you may need to start periodizing your cycles of muscle gain and fat loss. Go on a small calorie surplus for 4 to 6 weeks while you lift include more volume and frequency in your weight training so that you can add a little bit of muscle. It's not impossible to gain muscle in a deficit, but it's a lot less likely, and particularly for people who have already lost some fat and have already been training. That for the long term, it's more difficult, a lot more difficult. So I would recommend little mini blocks of a muscle gaining block where you increase your calories to about 300 over maintenance. We like to see those in carbs. They're actually harder to convert to fat. They're more, they contribute more to performance in the gym and for recovery. So add back in a little bit of carbs, increase your volume and frequency of your training, add some muscle, and then turn right around and diet again. And your body will be more likely to allow you to lose a little bit of fat that it might be holding on to. So don't do continuous dieting because I think that you're going to need to be able to keep adding muscle and losing fat by optimizing your calories and your training throughout both of those different blocks.
And when you say like a diet break, I mean, people love, it's bulk season, like I'm going to gain all kinds of weight, and then, they want to go way off the plan. How long should somebody, be on this break?
There's a few theories. It seems that you need at least 2 days. Like if you're going to diet for 5 days, let's say your maintenance calories are 2,000 calories a day. So you go to 1,500 calories a day Monday through Friday, and you go to 2,000 calories on Saturday and Sunday. So you go to maintenance calories. It's not a diet break, free for all you can eat party. You just don't maintain a deficit. That's one way. Or you can diet at a deficit for 2 weeks or 3 weeks and then take a full week of maintenance calories. That's the recommendation for diet breaks for weight loss. I proposed a second option, which is to go to a slight surplus and do hypertrophy training for 4 to 6 weeks, then go to a deficit to do fat loss for 4 to 6 weeks. It's always important to lift weights while you're training, but you can retain lean body mass with a little heavier training, with a little less frequency in a calorie deficit. And you can maintain and gain strength in a deficit. But it's really hard to add muscle in a deficit, particularly for someone who's already been dieting and training.
Got it. Powerlifters and strongman competitors love the vertical diet. They love being able to get in those calories without feeling gross. But Mark Williams is asking, can we use the vertical diet and expect to lose body fat and recompose ourselves for those of us that are carrying around 20% or more body fat?
Absolutely. Losing body fat is a matter of maintaining a calorie deficit. And it's not as simple as calories in, calories out, because there's many components that affect that, like non-exercise activity, exercise activity, hormones affect that, hunger, all those things. But you need to maintain a deficit. I talked about the guru diet, the egg whites, broccoli, and tilapia. If you have the same number of calories in an egg white and broccoli diet as you do in a steak and eggs diet, you're going to lose weight. There's no difference between the two, but one will cause you to be more hungry, to manifest micronutrient deficiencies, to be tired. It's a lot less sustainable to use an over-restrictive, a micronutrient-restrictive diet like the guru diet. So yes, you can lose weight. We have thousands of female clients all over the world that aren't competitive, that are just soccer moms that love the diet because they have more energy and they're not as hungry because it's whole foods that are loaded with iron and B12 and zinc and choline and all the things that you need to have energy.
Cool. And then we'll end with this one. This one's from Rob. Is the vertical diet the best for people over the age of 55? Seems like it would help with immune system and consistent weight and training.
Yeah, I don't think there's a huge age difference. I'm actually working on a book for kids that has, it talks about the same thing, getting adequate protein, having, sufficient micronutrients in the diet, a variety of foods for protein sources, such as some red meat, some whole eggs, some Greek yogurt, certainly fruits and vegetables that are all in there, low gas. one of the big things for people as they age, two biggest things that they come to me about, people that are my age group or above, is one is digestion. They have tended over the years to your hydrochloric acid actually decreases as you age, and it makes it harder for you to digest and assimilate nutrients, break down proteins, and absorb minerals. And so, we try and make sure we focus on them using some strategies to improve that. Acid reflux is common with people as they age, and I have a whole chapter on that in the book as well, how to prevent that. Blood pressure seems to rise as people age, and so I have a blood pressure quick fix kit where I focus on things like getting adequate potassium and magnesium, and doing the 10-minute walks after meals to lower the area under the curve for blood sugars and insulin, which has a dramatic effect on blood pressure, and of course the CPAP for apnea. And then getting more protein is important for people as they age. They tend to assimilate protein more poorly than a younger individual. So you actually have to get a little more protein, at least 40 grams per meal, at least a gram of protein per pound of body weight, in order to maintain lean body mass, because as we age, we start to experience sarcopenia, a loss of muscle tissue. It gets harder and harder to hold on to. So you have to be more deliberate about fueling it and feeding it, and then also training it so that you can hold on to it.
Cool. We're all good. Thank you, everybody that submitted questions beforehand. And then again, anybody that used the live chat function to kind of sneak in a question there. So thank you again for everybody. Thank you, Stan, for answering all those questions. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Oh, hey, I got one question for you. This is really important. I have to know if we had more people attending our talk today than Eddie Combs. We're very competitive.
You won.
Yes. I'll tell Eddie immediately.
and again, we had our first female viewer, so I think she counts for like 10 or something. That's welcome to the sausage party, right?
Yeah, I am kind of a looker. People know me in the industry. Me and Mike O'Hearn, we're cover models.
Exactly. It's the hair. It's always the hair, brother.
Yep, that's one.
Well, hey, Stan, thanks so much for your time, brother. It's always, a pleasure to talk to you. You always spit great knowledge, and, hopefully everyone was able to walk away with, some lightning bolts to help themselves or to help some other people. Let everybody know where we can get you. Are we going back out on tour? What are we doing? How can people get more of Stan Efferding?
Yeah, everything's at Stan Efferding. My website, stanefferding.com, Instagram at Stan Efferding, my YouTube, Stan Efferding, lots of rants on there, a lot of free content for people to get. I don't have another plan for a big tour. I'm still resting on that one. And I think that once the whole COVID thing lifts and people are all back to normal, then I'll start another, I'll start more seminars and let people know.
Awesome. Well, again, everybody, tell everybody about, what you learned here today, what you enjoyed, make sure everyone, who doesn't somehow know who Stan Efferding, let them know. Appreciate everybody for being here, and especially Stan. Again, thank you so much. We love you, bud. And it's always a pleasure, and it's always an honor to chat with you, man. We'll see you guys soon. That's it from markbell.com. Thanks, everybody.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.